Picture this. You walk into a casino at 8 p.m. just to look around. Maybe you'll play a little blackjack. Nothing serious. $20 tops. You tell yourself that in the car, out loud, like it's a contract with your future self. 4 hours later, you're standing at an ATM you don't remember walking to, pulling out money you told yourself you wouldn't touch. And the strange part isn't that you lost. The strange part is that you don't feel like you made a single bad decision along the way. Every choice felt reasonable in the moment. One more hand to win it back. One more spin because the last one was so close. You weren't reckless. You were responding, perfectly, to a room that was built down to the carpet pattern to make you respond exactly that way. That's what I want to talk about today. Not gambling, really. Psychology. Because the same forces that quietly drain a stranger's paycheck in Vegas are working on you right now. In your inbox, in your banking app, in the checkout screen you scroll past without thinking. And once you see how the system actually works, you can't unsee it. Which, honestly, is the whole point. Here's the thing most people get wrong about casinos. They think the house wins because gamblers are bad at math, or weak-willed, or just unlucky. It's an easy story to tell, because it lets the rest of us off the hook. That's not me. I'm smarter than that. But casinos don't make billions of dollars a year by hoping people are dumb. They make billions because they understand something most of us never get taught. Humans don't make decisions with logic first. We make them with feeling first, and then we build the logic afterward to justify what we already wanted to do. The casino doesn't need you to be foolish. It just needs you to be human. And humans, it turns out, are remarkably predictable once you understand what's actually going on under the hood. So let's actually go under the hood. Because this isn't really a story about slot machines. It's a story about attention, dopamine, and the quiet architecture of persuasion. And once you understand it, you'll start noticing it everywhere else in your life too.
Let's start with the math, because the math is almost boringly simple, and that's exactly why it works. Every single game in a casino has what's called a house edge. It's a small percentage, usually somewhere between 1 and 15% depending on the game, that guarantees the casino profits over time. Not on any single hand, not on any single spin, over time. That distinction matters more than almost anything else in this video, so sit with it for a second. On any given night, you can absolutely walk away a winner. People do it constantly. The casino's fine with that, because it's not playing for one night. It's playing across millions of hands, played by millions of people over years and decades. And across that many repetitions, a 2% edge stops being a coin flip and starts being a certainty. The same way a coin flipped 1,000,000 times will land almost exactly 50-50, even though any single flip is unpredictable. You are playing a short game. The house is playing a long one, and a long game with a guaranteed small edge will always beat a short game with hope in it. Always. Now here's where it gets psychological, because the math alone wouldn't be enough to keep you at the table. Losing a small percentage over time isn't scary. It's the feeling of almost winning that keeps you there. Slot machines are engineered around something called a near-miss effect. You pull the lever, and 2 cherries line up perfectly, with the third just 1 symbol away. Your brain doesn't register that as a loss. It registers it as almost. And almost feels like progress. Almost feels like the machine is warming up, like it owes you something now. Neuroscientists have found that near misses light up the reward pathways in the brain as actual wins, even though mathematically, a near miss is identical to any other loss. You didn't come close to winning, you just lost in a way that felt encouraging. That's not an accident, that's design. Then there's the reward schedule itself, which might be the single most powerful piece of psychology at play. If a machine paid out on a predictable pattern, say every 10th spin, you'd get bored fast. Predictability kills desire. But slot machines pay out on what's called a variable ratio schedule, meaning the reward comes at random, unpredictable intervals. And it turns out this is, by a wide margin, the most addictive pattern of reinforcement that exists. It's the same mechanism behind checking your phone for notifications, refreshing your email, or scrolling for one more video. Your brain doesn't crave the reward itself nearly as much as it craves the uncertainty of when the reward is coming. The anticipation is the actual hook. And then there's the environment, which does its own quiet work in the background. No clocks, no windows, free drinks that lower your inhibitions without you ever having to decide to drink more. Chips instead of cash, because handing over a blue disc doesn't register in your brain the same way handing over a $100 bill does. You've abstracted the pain of losing by turning it into a token first. Even the layout of the floor is designed to disorient you gently so that leaving requires more effort than staying. None of this requires you to be careless. It requires you to be a person with a functioning brain in a room specifically built to exploit how that brain works.
So here's the turning point, and it's the part I actually want you to walk away with. The moment you understand that losing wasn't a personal failure, it was a predictable outcome of a well-designed system, something shifts. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me that I can't control myself?" and start asking a much more useful question. What environments am I in that are designed to override my self-control? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Casinos aren't the only rooms built like this. They're just the most honest ones, because at least a casino tells you up front that the odds favor the house. Most of the systems built around your money don't even give you that courtesy. Think about a credit card with a minimum payment option. That minimum payment exists so that the feeling of debt disappears long before the actual debt does. You pay $25, the red notification goes away, your brain registers relief, and meanwhile, interest keeps compounding quietly in the background. That's a near-miss effect with an extra decade attached. Think about a checkout page with a countdown timer telling you the discount expires in 10 minutes. That's not information, that's urgency manufactured to bypass the part of your brain that would otherwise pause and think it over. Think about a subscription that's effortless to start and deliberately, almost comically difficult to cancel. That's friction, engineered asymmetrically, the same way a casino makes staying easy and leaving hard. I'm not telling you this to make you paranoid, and I'm definitely not telling you to make you feel foolish for having fallen for any of it, because every single person alive has fallen for some version of this, myself included. I'm telling you because once you can name the mechanism, it loses a huge amount of its power over you. Psychologists call this inoculation. When you understand how persuasion works before you encounter it, you become measurably more resistant to it. You can't out-willpower a system built by people who study human weakness for a living, but you can out-design it once you know what you're dealing with.
So what does that actually look like in real life? Not in a dramatic, overhaul your whole existence way, just in small, quiet adjustments that put a little friction back on your side of the table. One thing that genuinely helps is making money feel real again, the opposite of what chips do in a casino. If you mostly spend on a card, try tracking a week of purchases by writing the actual number down by hand, or even paying cash for something for a change. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but there's real research showing that people spend meaningfully less when the transaction feels tangible instead of abstract. You're just giving your brain back the information a tap-to-pay screen quietly removes. Another one is deciding your limits before you're emotionally inside the moment, not during it. A casino works so well precisely because it gets you to decide in the heat of things, when your judgment is already compromised by adrenaline or hope or that near-miss feeling. The same is true of a late-night online cart or a big financial decision made right after a stressful day. If you can build a habit of deciding your boundaries in a calm moment and just following the plan you already made, you're essentially removing yourself from the exact conditions that these systems are optimized to exploit. And maybe the most important one, the one that's less about tactics and more about identity, give yourself permission to walk away from a system without needing to fully understand every mechanism working against you in the moment. You don't need a psychology degree to leave a casino, close a tab, or cancel a subscription. You just need to recognize the feeling of being nudged and treat that feeling itself as useful information, rather than something to push past. None of this is about becoming a hyper-vigilant, joyless person who distrusts every purchase they make. That's its own kind of exhausting, and honestly, it's not sustainable.
It's about building just enough awareness that you get to make your decisions on purpose instead of having them made for you by a room, a screen, or an app that studied your psychology more carefully than you have.
Here's what I keep coming back to with all of this. The people who lose money in a casino aren't weaker or dumber than the people who don't. Most of the time, they're just people who walked into a room that was built by teams of very smart people whose entire job was to make losing feel like almost winning. And I think there's something quietly comforting in that, even though it doesn't sound like it at first. Because if the problem was never really about willpower, then the solution was never about becoming a stronger, more disciplined version of yourself either. It's about understanding the room you're standing in and choosing with open eyes whether you want to stay in it. You're not behind. You're not bad with money. You're a person doing what people do inside systems that were, in a lot of cases, never built with your best interest in mind. That's not a character flaw. That's just information. And now that you have it, you get to use it. So the next time something feels a little too easy to start and strangely hard to stop, a little too urgent, a little too close to a win, you don't have to panic, and you definitely don't have to be perfect about it. Just pause. Notice the room, and remember that awareness, even just a little bit of it, tends to be worth a lot more over time than people expect. Progress beats perfection, every single time.